If sea bears really exist, why didn't one show up?
Maybe it's because you're not wearing your sombrero in a goofy fashion.
Oh, sorry. How silly of me. You mean like this?
No, like that.
I don't like a gold rush, gold rush. I don't like anticipating my face in a red flush.
Hey guys, so this video is a bit overdue, a little over a month overdue. Of course, you all know the story. I got trapped in the woods. I had to survive off squirrels for a bit. Would definitely not recommend that lifestyle, but today we are going to be talking about Golden Kamui finally. This is a historical adventure series that was written and illustrated by Satoru Noda, and it ran in Weekly Young Jump from 2014 all the way to 2022. 8 years is quite the run, so let's take a look at this manga and see if it is worth all of the hype. Golden Kamui takes place in the early 1900s and follows Saichi Sugimoto, a war vet who is up on the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido looking for some gold. Why is he looking for gold? Well, it's revealed pretty early on, but the main problem is that he can't really find any, because being a few years late to the gold rush, people have pretty much made off with all the gold, leaving Hokkaido pretty bare. At least that's what he first thinks, until he comes across an interesting story, a legend of sorts, that has been spreading around. During the gold rush, one of the indigenous tribes of Hokkaido, the Ainu, supposedly found a metric shitload of that shiny metal, but then a man appeared and murdered all of the Ainu guarding the gold and took it for himself and hid it away. But before telling his friends where he hid the darn thing, he ended up getting himself arrested and sentenced to death. He convinces all of the inmates of this prison that he was kept in to allow themselves to be tattooed with one of his special sneaky tattoos. You put all these tattoos together and you get a map to the Ainu treasure hoard. And he tells all of these inmates, if you break out of here and you find this gold, you can keep half of it. And that is incentive enough to, of course, cause all of these inmates to break out, and now they're running all over the place. So Sugimoto, of course being after gold, is quite intrigued with this story. But it seems a little too far-fetched to be true. However, he then quickly realizes that not only is this gold real, but he is far from the only person to have heard of this legend. When a bear shows up to ruin his plans, he is saved by a Serpa, an Ainu girl. A girl who, as it turns out, has a very strong connection to this gold story because her father was one of the men that was killed trying to defend it. After seeing how capable this girl is of surviving the harsh Hokkaido wilderness, Sugimoto decides to team up with her to start looking for these escaped convicts to get their tattoos, whether or not they can just copy them down or if they have to, be forced to flay them. It seems like it might be a bit tricky, but as it turns out, these tattooed convicts are fucking everywhere. But as I alluded to, they are not the only ones who know about this gold, and not the only ones after it. Yes, there are two powerful factions at play, one of these being led by First Lieutenant Tsurumi of the 7th Division of the Japanese military. He's a bit of a psychopath, so that's kind of a problem. And there's also a group being led by Toshizo Hijikata, the Vice Commander of the Shinsengumi, who, while quite a bit more sane than Lieutenant Tsurumi, is definitely a force to be reckoned with, and you definitely do not want to be on his bad side. So the story begins with all of these factions at play, all after this treasure, to hunt down and find all of these escaped convicts with the tattoos, put them all together, and hope they can figure something out. This is a journey that will take them all across Japan and even parts of Russia, clashing together, forming rivalries, creating partnerships, surviving in this fucked up place they're at. And along the way, they may just discover that there is a lot more to this treasure than previously thought, as well as the power of true homoerotic friendship. Golden Kamui is wonderful. Right off the bat, I think this has one of the best, most gripping starts for any manga I have ever read. They really don't beat around the bush, they just introduce the characters, set up the story, and go. And from there, the series rarely ever slows down at all. It's extremely well paced as we follow the characters on this crazy journey, always juggling multiple plot points with ease. Each new encounter our main characters have with the other factions or with other escaped convicts feels super fresh because there are always new twists thrown in. The great thing about this whole treasure hunting aspect is that you never really know what you're in for when a new guy with a tattoo will show up, what they're going to be like. These are, of course, all criminals. You know, some of them may had their sensible reasons. Some of them are completely psychotic. So whenever one arc finishes and they move on to the next one, you're always eager to just see what's going to happen next, and you can almost never predict it. There are some excellent twists and curveballs the story throws your way. The status quo of the series changes multiple times, but it always feels satisfying and earned. This is a very, very intense manga, and it can go to some quite gruesome places. You can expect it all from gun violence to people just being absolutely massacred by the wildlife. The characters always feel like they're in danger. You're always on your toes and always worried about them, and it creates a great sense of suspense throughout the whole thing. However, this manga is also one of the funniest I think I have ever read. This is an absurd story with a lot of absurd things happening to absurd characters. And it strikes this balance between drama and comedy better than I think any manga I have ever read. It's actually quite magical, and I don't understand how it works this well. But there are so many excellent pieces of comedy in this manga, interspersed between all of the insane, intense drama happening. It never feels out of place, it never feels like it's taking away from the stakes and the suspense of the manga. And while, you know, as a serious drama, this could have worked fine, the added lightheartedness to it all, and how well it blends together, just adds so much more enjoyment to the series. It also led to some really funny moments and running gags, specifically one involving poop. I never said the humor was mature. While the conflicts between all of our main factions are excellent and just carry the story with ease, another one of the major conflicts in Golden Kamuy is just surviving out in the wild. And a significant portion of this manga is actually focused on the characters just surviving, hunting and cooking and selling whatever they can to get by. And while it may seem that this is a negative as it sort of takes away from, you know, the overall treasure hunt going on, but it proves to be a necessary part of the story and is extremely interesting on its own. Of course, Sugimoto's group has a Serpa to help him. She knows a whole lot about how to hunt and how to cook, and she's showing them all these incredible things, and we're taking on a step-by-step journey through this culture. From what I hear, this was a very respectful and accurate representation of the Ainu people, and seeing how these people lived was just so interesting. And it was really nice to see how a Serpa's culture rubbed off on her friends and how they taught her stuff as well. And eventually this crazy web of a story filled with so much mystery and intrigue and friendships and double crosses, it all comes together in this explosive climax, which I honestly thought was one of the finest I had ever read. Not only does it bring together the excellent action that you've come to know, but every single thread is tied up super nicely in a super satisfying way. More so than I think I could have even imagined. So, like, I was cheering by the end of this manga. It was so goddamn good. I think maybe the epilogue could have been just a bit longer, but I mean, what we got was still super great. And Noda has actually said that, you know, once the volumes come out for these later parts, he is actually probably going to add a bit more to them. So that'll be something to look forward to. So yeah, overall, Golden Kamuy has one of those rare stories where I just really have no complaints about it at all. I thought it was an absolute phenomenal ride from start to finish, and I'm so glad it all ended in such an amazing way. Also, it's very gay. It is very homosexual and fruity. Now that I think about it, waiting until June might have been the move for this one. Much like the story, the cast of characters is phenomenal as well. Sugimoto is a bit of a crazy dude. Back in the military, he earned the nickname Immortal Sugimoto because of how he seemed to just not be able to die. And while he isn't really immortal, he carries this attitude with him everywhere, charging headfirst into very dangerous situations, and he just sort of makes the most of it. His main motivations also make him a really easy character to like and to want to see succeed, and you're always just wondering just what is this guy gonna do next, and whatever he does next is usually fucking wild. Serpa is a great character, coming from a very different background from most of the others. I mentioned before, she provides a lot of insight into helping helping them survive. And in the midst of all these, gigantic 300-pound manly men wrestling each other, she is able to hold her own with her unique set of skills. And following her story, which is integral to the treasure hunt to find the Ainu gold, was very well done and very satisfying. The Escape King Shiraishi is probably my favorite character in the series, and he is definitely the least serious. He is an escaped convict who teams up with Sugimoto and Usurpa very early on in order to earn a cut of the gold, and is famous for the insane ways he seems to be able to escape any prison in any situation. He's a character that allows the story to really just breathe and have a good time. He's a character whose presence always lightens up the mood, has some great comedy, but at the same time his unique set of skills allow the plot to go in some really interesting and creative directions. There are a lot more side characters that they come across and work with, and they're all pretty much fantastic. I can't really spend time talking about every single one of them, but things are just as interesting for the antagonist side. Hijikata I wouldn't really call a villain. He's just someone who, he gets shit done. And, sometimes his goals even match Sugimoto's, and there may be some times that, they team up and do stuff. But yeah, he's a really wonderful character with a rich backstory, given, how old he is compared to the rest of the cast. Lieutenant Tsurumi, as I said, is fucking insane. He's a very unhinged and unpredictable person, which makes him a very scary and worthy antagonist. He got, his forehead blown off once, because it's 100 years ago, they just put a fucking metal plate around him. So he's just always leaking pus and stuff. It's just such a fucking fantastic character trait that just adds so much to how nuts he is. And of course there is Ogata, who is a member of the 7th Division. However, his goals do not exactly line up with Tsurumi's. Another very unpredictable character who seems to have his own motivations separate from anyone else. And he is without a doubt one of the best characters in the series. His backstory was incredibly fleshed out, and seeing where the story took him was unbelievably satisfying. So yeah, again, nothing to complain about here. I was super satisfied with all of these characters ended up. Watching their development was an absolute joy, and I would honestly kill to see more. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the art, because, I showed a bit throughout this video, and it's fucking incredible, man. Especially for a weekly series. I mean, Noda has all the makings of a master here. The character designs are all excellent, the world is fully realized, the action is intense and breathtaking. It's very gory, but it hits super hard where it needs to. His facial expressions are absolutely hilarious. They add so much to the comedy of this manga, and as the series progresses, it just keeps getting better and better. It is absolutely one of my favorite looking manga ever. So if you cannot tell, guys, I fucking love Golden Kamui so much. It is all around basically a perfect package in my eyes. It has everything I could ever want from a historical action series. It's full of heart, full of laughs, full of suspense, and I cannot recommend it enough. Bango. I know this one's pretty popular, most people have probably checked it out, but now that it's over, I cannot implore you enough to either pick it up fresh or to keep reading. It truly did not disappoint, and thankfully most of the series is available in English. I believe 26 volumes are out now, 31 of course being the final one. Viz has these nice signature editions, a bit higher quality than their normal stuff, and you can also read all of these volumes with a subscription to the Shonen Jump service. Every time a new volume comes out, they'll add a new batch of chapters. An anime exists, unfortunately not the ideal adaptation. While it does a lot of things right, it also cuts a lot of content. They're really rushing through the story here. Definitely wouldn't recommend it as a first-time experience. But it's getting another season soon. I don't know if they're going to complete the story or not, but either way, I guess this kind of adaptation is better than no adaptation. For alternate recommendations, the usuals. That'll be it for me. I will see you guys soon for another video. Leave your thoughts on Golden Kamui in the comments down below. And remember to kiss the homies goodnight.
Somewhere deep in their